Fourth oral question, Baroness Bennett of Manor Castle.
My Lords, I beg leave to ask the question standing under my name on the order paper.
My Lords, the Government has given emergency authorisation to use Thiamethoxam to protect sugar beet from viruses in 2022. The environmental assessment identified potential risks to bees, and the authorisation imposes strict restrictions to minimise these risks. In particular, the pesticide will only be used if the predicted level of virus is at or above 19% of the national crop, according to independent modelling. No flowering crop may be planted within 32 months of treated sugar beet.
I thank the Noble Lord the Minister for his answer, and I have no doubt that other peers following me will address the issue of bees, which is absolutely crucial and very much relates also to the second question we had on food security. But in the light of the Lancet article yesterday showing that 1.3 million people in 2019 died as a result of antimicrobial resistance around the world, I'm going to focus on the second part of my question. I think perhaps for the first time in the House, because increasing numbers of studies are showing, and there's increasing understanding, that cross-resistance can develop. Pesticides, bacteria can be exposed to pesticides. They end up then being resistant to drugs they've never even experienced. Will the Noble Lord the Minister commit to go back to his department and speak to officials and ensure that this is being taken sufficient account of when all pesticides are being considered?
The department, myself and others, mind desperately about antimicrobial resistance, and I saw the wording obviously in the question and looked into the matter in some detail. The neonicotinoid that we're talking about is an insecticide and is not found to be causally related to antimicrobial resistance. I will look at the Lancet article that she talked about, and I will take the points back. But the government takes AMR extremely seriously, and we are coming forward with a number of different ideas to tackle this problem.
My Lords, would my noble friend take this opportunity to update the House on alternative forms of production of sugar beet, such as organic, and the work done by Leaf and Rothamsted Institute in this regard?
There is excellent work being done, and I don't think this is a conversation we will be having in future years. I very much hope it won't, because enormous amounts are being done through integrated pest management and a variety of different breeding techniques of sugar beet and husbandry matters. So I very much hope that there will be no need for derogations in the future.
What assessment has the government made of the health of the bee population in this country, and what contingency plans will they consider if it's deteriorating?
The government has a pollinator strategy and works closely with the bee sector in order to make sure that our policies are reflective of the needs of pollinators right across the piece. And within our sustainable farming incentive, the key part of our ELMS announcement, there is an integrated pest management part of it. And these are the sort of policy products that have come out of work we are doing to enhance bee health across the country.
My Lords,
My Lords, does the Minister accept that this policy is making a mockery of the promise in the Environment Act to replace the use of toxic pesticides with integrated pest management techniques and low toxicity solutions? And how does the decision comply with the current need under law for pesticides products to have no unacceptable effects on the environment, when this clearly does have that?
I don't take that view, no, because first of all, we have massively increased the condition that we have applied this year. Last year, the derogation wasn't used because it didn't reach the already high 9%. We've raised that to 19% this year. And, of course, there is a wider factor, that if there is a catastrophic loss of yield, that sugar will have to come from other countries. Spain, France, Belgium and other EU countries have had derogations with none of, or very few of the conditions that we have applied. We could damage our sugar infrastructure in this country, the factories that we need to be producing sugar for our own population, and exporting the problem to countries that do not have our conditions, our high determination to move towards integrated pest management.
Hear, hear.
Lord Jones of Cheltenham wishes to speak virtually. I think it's a good time to call him now.
My Lords, Countryside Online tells us the sugar beet industry supports 9,500 jobs, produces half of the UK's sugar and is environmentally friendly because of the low number of miles beet travels from farm to processing plant to consumer. Mr. Gove supported a total ban on neonicotinoids when he was Environment Secretary because they harm populations of bees and other pollinators. By allowing their use now, why is the government breaking its promise to maintain high environmental standards?
My Lords, we're not. We are in exceptional circumstances responding to an exceptional problem, and we are imposing very high standards. I would repeat that no flowering crop may be planted on land where this seed dressing is used within 32 months of treated sugar beet. There is a minimal effect on pollinators because sugar beet is not harvested after it's flowered. And the other conditions that we've applied may well mean that it will not be used this year.
My Lords, my noble friend is absolutely right. The key thing is getting the balance between risk and benefit right. And would he confirm that this will be taken on sound scientific grounds, not on emotional grounds? And would he also confirm that when the decision obviously has to be taken at the last possible moment, does he foresee any logistical problems raised in the second question we had today with getting the chemical to the seed producers in time so that the decision can be made at the last possible moment?
I haven't heard of any logistical problems. If the weather continues cold, it is unlikely that the threshold will be reached and it will be required at all. If there is a large uptake of aphids that are the vector of this yellow virus disease, then there is already in place measures which will mean that this will happen. But there is a very good chance that this will not be required in use at all.
My Lords, another study just published in the Journal of Applied Ecology says that small gardens are at least as important as large gardens for conserving bees and other pollinators. What is the government doing? Is the government doing anything to encourage small urban gardens?
We provide advice to beekeepers and work with trade bodies and organisations across the country, whether they're urban or rural. And I would take this opportunity to applaud the work of the London Pollinator Project, which is identified, as the Noble Baroness identified, an enormous benefit for pollinators in urban areas. And it's not just suburban gardens, it can be in quite highly urban built-up areas.
Does the noble lord agree with me that plant breeding, facilitated by the novel gene editing technologies that are available now, is the progressive way of avoiding chemical pesticide use?
The noble lord is absolutely right, and a lot of work is being done in organisations across the country, already mentioned Rothamsted, but also at the Roslin Institute and others in Scotland and in England, where we are seeing the possibility of great advances, not through GMOs, but through using existing and perhaps accelerating existing plant breeding techniques, which will make these kinds of conversations seem very out of date.
The noble lord, in answer to my noble friend Lady Whittaker, talked about the benefits of urban gardens for pollinators, and of course he's absolutely right. And one of the reasons why pollinators are very well served by urban gardens is because of the great diversity of plant life in urban gardens compared, say, with mass agricultural areas. However, there is a problem about people concreting over urban garden space. Could he say what the government is doing in conjunction with local authorities to discourage this practice? Because it's not only a problem for pollinators, it's also a problem for flood management.
I think the Noble Baroness's last point is the one where the government can be most effective, particularly in terms of building regulations and planning policy. It's very hard to say to a householder, you cannot get rid of a 10 by 10 lawn outside your house. But we can design in green infrastructure, and there is enormous amounts of work going on across government to try and make sure that we are greening our planning policies and greening our urban infrastructure to address precisely the point she raises.